Well, this year was an election year for many people around the world. The election year, as it's about to wrap up, is living up to the expectations. It's a clean sweep for the Republicans in America, while in Mauritius, the governing alliance has lost power. In Mozambique, the leader of the new opposition has called on his supporters to continue to protest and reject the election results. For more on this, we have our international news editor, Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, this certainly has been a momentous year when it comes to the people calling for change. But let's take a look and start off in America. I mean, the election results, what does it mean for America's foreign policy?
Well, clearly there's going to be a shift in terms of how America interacts with other countries, including some of the multilateral organizations. For example, when you look at where we are today, we are in the midst of COP29, and Donald Trump has made it clear that he's going to slow down on closing the coal power stations because he doesn't believe this is a move that he must take now. And also the issue of drilling of oil will continue. Therefore, COP29 right now, I think behind the scenes, people are talking about what is going to happen. And you know that America in previous meetings had committed lots and lots of money to support developing countries, including South Africa, to move to clean energy. And therefore, with America under Trump, what is going to happen with those commitments? The other issue is the issue of the World Health Organization. He had, at that point, indicated that he's pulling out of the World Health Organization, which is an important agency of the United Nations. The last issue is funding of the UN itself. He had reservations in terms of funding the United Nations, and it was quite tense between him and the United Nations. And lastly, when you look at other relationship, NATO, he had called out his peers in Europe that they are not doing much to support financially NATO. And therefore, that North Atlantic Treaty Organization must be reviewed in terms of how it operates. The Middle East, we don't know what is he going to say, but he has sent a message he wants the war to end before he gets into office in January. And on Ukraine, the same message. And with us, South Africa, AGOA, how is the Republicans how are the Republicans going to approach this with such power now in the Senate, in the other house, and including a head of state being a Republican? The issue of PEPFAR, I think he will continue with PEPFAR because he did that even previously, because this was a brainchild of the Republicans, the then President Bush and the former South African President Thabo Mbeki. I think that one will be safe. And then that's the issue. But for me, the big story is Elon Musk, a South African-born billionaire who is now an American. The influence in terms of digital platform to change the American politics, and the man to watch is Elon Musk in the whole process.
All right. There's a lot to watch when it comes to the US, as you point out there. But let's move it back to the continent now and take a look very quickly at two of these latest elections that were held. Of course, another shocking result in Mauritius. I mean, it's unbelievable to see that the governing alliance has lost power. And then from that, we move into Mozambique. But perhaps you want to weigh in very quickly on Mauritius first.
2 seats only, 60 seats to the opposition. That's a massive, massive defeat. Another change, sweeping change in the financial capital of Africa. Mozambique, yesterday, the leader of the current party that's going to be in opposition in parliament, Vene Mondlane, rallied his people last night to continue to protest. I spoke to a senior member of his party yesterday, and who is also a mayor in Mozambique. He told me that they entering a fourth stage of protest, and it's going to be even bigger than the previous ones. And calling on the South African president Cyril Ramaphosa to assist. You can see they don't trust the current chair of SADC, that is Zimbabwe. He even said SADC is better now with Botswana, Zambia, Malawi, Lesotho, and they still have trust in South Africa. But they've lost trust. They don't trust Tanzania, head of organ on politics, and they don't trust the current chair, that is Zimbabwe. And therefore, we expect more difficult days ahead of the summit of SADC in Zimbabwe from the 19th to the 20th, when the leaders of SADC will be meeting. And therefore, another tough time in the region in relation to security in Mozambique and the neighboring countries.
All right, just wrap it up for us, Sophie, very quickly on Mozambique, and very quickly, we just run into time. The big one is growing calls for SADC to come up with a plan to deal with this political standoff. I mean, economically, it's affecting the country. It's also damaging us as a country too, in terms of trade and what's been happening at borders. Update us on that.
Yes, that will affect trade. When I spoke to this leader, member of this opposition party, he said they are going to block the borders, and therefore trade is going to be affected. The supply chain is going to be affected in the region, including Mozambique itself. They are going to suffer. This is going to affect the economy of Mozambique. But he said they will start protests at 3 in the afternoon. In the morning, they will allow people to go to work. And therefore, maybe there will be movement in the morning. Later in the afternoon, there won't be movement. SADC will have to figure that out, I think. But when he said they still believe in South Africa, and also saying they heard what the former South African President Mbeki said to the SABC when he was speaking to Kaya Kumalo, calling for peace and negotiations. They really have changed their minds in relation to South Africa. Even the president is the leader of the ANC very close to Frelimo. So I think now the burden again is on South Africa economically, refugee, security, and politically, even though we as the country right now, we don't lead any of the organs of SADC. We are members like any other country. The leading countries is Tanzania leading that organ on tracker politics and defense, and of course Zimbabwe leading the assembly. And therefore, President Ramaphosa will have to figure this out, and this is what we are going to ask Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, today when he's engaging the media.
All right, Sophie Mokoena, thanks for updating us on different election results and the repercussions thereof in many countries around the world, but particularly focusing here on Africa. That's our SABC News International editor.